My parents never pushed me around. I had special luck there. By the time I was invited to teach at Sarah Lawrence, I had decided that I didn't need a job and did not want one. It would interrupt my reading. But when I saw that school full of gorgeous girls, I thought, well, this is all right. When I finally got that job, I was 30 years old, and Dad said, "Joe, I thought you were going to be a literary bum." But until I got the job, he never said a word. He was a good father. When The Hero with 1,000 Faces came out, he said, "I prophesy this is going to be a wonderful book." He hadn't read a word of it, but he knew his boy had done it. I know that wandering might seem a strange form of life to someone with a science background, which tends to give you a prospect out ahead of what you're doing. But while wandering, you experience a kind of mysteriously organic process. It's like a tree growing. It doesn't know where it's growing next. A branch may grow out this way, then that way, then another way. If you let it be that way and don't have pressures from outside, when you look back, you'll see that this will have been an organic development.
Wasn't Jordan's first choice to intro him today. Kathy Newman was supposed to be here. Flight got canceled. I don't know what happened. What's that? So what I'm saying is, I'm going to bring out a white supremacist in just a moment. These people from Shapiro and Sam Harris and the Weinstein brothers and this whole crew of people are just not Harvey. Not Harvey, he's not in our crew. I should be very clear about that. But this whole crew of people have come together because of ideas. We have massive differences across the board, but we have come together because of ideas. And this man I'm about to introduce, I think, is at the forefront of all the right ideas. So with no further ado, give it up for Dr. Jordan Peterson.
You Angelinos aren't so tough. Thank you very much.
The loss of a love and the pain of a broken relationship is an overload of projection. That's all it is. In youth, your whole life is this wonderful dream that this is it. This relationship is the fulfillment of my fantasy, and I can't imagine life otherwise. No argument can quell this feeling of total projection of everything in the other one. When a relationship breaks off, it takes a person a little while to settle and find a new commitment. It's after the break-off, when there's no new commitment and life has been divested of all of its potentials, that this painful reaction takes place. For some people, this is a dangerous period. Nietzsche was the one who did the job for me. At a certain moment in his life, the idea came to him of what he called the love of your fate. Whatever your fate is, whatever the hell happens, you say, "This is what I need." It may look like a wreck, but go at it as though it were an opportunity, a challenge. If you bring love to that moment, not discouragement, you will find the strength is there. Any disaster you can survive is an improvement in your character, your stature, and your life. What a privilege. This is when the spontaneity of your own nature will have a chance to flow. The dark night of the soul comes just before revelation. When everything is lost and all seems darkness, then comes the new life and all that is needed.
Right? It's not a place that people will go. That's the Jungian shadow. It's one of the things Jung said was, well, everyone has a shadow, right? And that the human shadow reaches all the way to hell. And he meant that as literally as anything that you could mean. And Jung was a very profound thinker. And when he meant that the human shadow reached all the way to hell, he meant that in all the seriousness that that word would entail. And so it's very, very troublesome to look at history in that manner. But if you don't understand that history is about you, you do not understand history at all. And if you don't understand that you need to know history, because if you don't know history, you don't know who you are, then you don't understand history and you don't understand yourself. And if you don't understand yourself, you are way more dangerous than you think.
This entire movement the book, the nonprofit, the journals, the documentaries. In a way, all of it was just to get back at my ex for hurting me.
Joseph Campbell, who did a lovely job of popularizing Carl Jung's ideas, his advice was something like, follow your bliss, which is a little bit, excuse me, too California for my taste. See, and that isn't what, that is, and Campbell was a student of Jung, but Jung would have never said, follow your bliss. It's like that wasn't Jung, not at all. He said something quite different, which was, follow what calls out to you as meaningful, and it will take you to the place you least want to go. And if you go there, then enlightenment is possible. And so for Jung, enlightenment required a journey to hell before an ascent to heaven, let's say, something like that. And that's the barrier to people. Maybe that's why God put angels with flaming swords at the gateway to paradise when he chased Adam and Eve out and history began. It's like, to get back into paradise, you have to go through the flames, and I really do believe that's the case. I do not think that you can understand what good is until you understand what evil is. And I do not think that you can understand what evil is until you understand that you're the perpetrator.
Wow.
And that's a very dark thing to understand.
My documentary. Say hi, Sherman. What's up? How you doing? Look good? All right, cool.
In the suburbs, and your dad, yes, as an immigrant, came to this country
From communist
from
China.
a communist China. I get all that, but just
Extreme left Democrats are post-Marxists.
But-
I've seen it.
yeah, they can be. But when it comes to what's insulting to me is that when you put a man like Jeff Sessions in as your Attorney General, who is for mandatory sentence for first offense drug users. You know who those first offender drug users are? People of color. It was my father who spent 10 years, who broke up a black family, and I'm glad my brothers and sisters didn't go down that path, and I was glad I was an inspiration for them to move forward. But when you live that life where you are in a neighborhood because of systematic racism, that I didn't happen to grow up there, and you walk on the street and you got fucking cops putting guns in your head, to me, that it's insulting, because he seems like he is for, Jeff Sessions is that's
Question.
evil.
Question.
So I can see why our views are so different.
Question.
I get it.
If there was a poor white guy that did the same thing as your dad did,
He wouldn't.
would he get the same penalty?
Fuck no, he'd have got off.
According to Jeff Sessions.
Of course not. My dad would have not. My
Okay.
dad was white. He probably didn't. Probably got a year or two in probation. The same thing like when white boys get busted with coke. They
All
don't
right,
go
so
to jail.
you're saying You're saying the same poor white person that did exactly the same thing your dad did would have gotten off.
You'd have had a lesser sentence. There's 2 different laws for people of color and for white men. It's just, I've seen it. I've seen my friends go to jail over it. I mean, fuck. I've had the cops roll up on me like I stole my grandfather's car and draw their guns on me. Does that shit happen in the suburbs?
Got it.
No.
All right.
So I
agree.
So your view.
I agree that there is racism. It's alive. I will also say that in China, if someone was caught with drugs like that, they would get shot.
That's their law. Yeah.
Like no, they would die.
Yeah, that's how.
You know what I mean? So it's not like, you know, I don't think it's a racist thing necessarily.
It's a rich and poor thing.
It's a no, because in China, like I said,
they're
regulating drugs. China regulates drugs very, very strictly. Way more strict than the United States.
Exactly.
And it has nothing to do with black people.
So I'll ask you one question. So, because here's like one thing where to me makes Trump's racist, and you put Betsy DeVos up in there. So when you take away education, you take away.
How is he taking away education?
No, when you take away money out of public schools, because
it's not working.
So okay.
I worked in the inner city
exactly.
for 5 years, and it was defunct.
You know why it's fucked up?
Why?
There's no money. There's no money into it.
No, it has nothing to do with that, and I will tell you why. Because if you use the same amount of money and go to Africa with my resources, with the same resources, it'd be different. And I'll tell you why.
So why do the suburbs?
It's culture. It's culture. I hate to fucking say this. It's going to sound nasty. But after 5 years, no, I'm not saying black people are wrong because you're black, okay? And my dad, I'm not saying all China people are fucking ghetto because my dad's not that. But what I am saying is you take the same amount of resources per student in a fucking classroom and you were to transport that to Africa. They're black, okay? I would get a lot more respect from the kids. B, they would all get together and they would learn, okay? I mean, not learn, but they wouldn't be like, you're fucking, you know, you eat rats, don't you? You blah blah blah. I've actually had a black kid call me chink.
They would be more grateful and
grateful and respectful. And same with the fucking Korean kids in Korea versus the Korean kids in the inner city.
So here's where
I'm not saying it's a black or white thing because Asians could be just as disrespectful in certain parts of the culture. I'm blaming, if I have to blame it on anything, it's pop culture, like fuck the blah 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 authority, whatever. It's the dystopic environment of like nothing's gonna work. The man is against us. What's the fucking point? It's that mentality.
So here's where you're missing, in my opinion, of not living. You like say you worked there and then you went home when you lived there. When you have...
I'd be fucking jaded too if I lived there.
Yeah, so when
I would.
So when you
I'm not blaming them.
So no, listen. So this again comes to the systematic distribution of things. So you know how like the redlining, who you vote for, the systematic of having impoverished communities is part of systematic of how our society unfortunately is set up. You go to the suburbs, you don't see these sort of problems. And it stems more than just beyond their attitude. That attitude comes from where it starts at. It starts at home with the parenting. And when your parents are poor, when your parents are ignorant,
poor mentality.
So it goes down. So that mentality, so you think about it. You've enslaved the people.
Who's you?
So listen, so I'm talking about just white America. So if you look at you have years and years of impoverished and going on in inner cities when there's nothing to do, when there's nothing going on to help better that. When you constantly have systematic racism, I mean, civil rights just died 60 years ago.
All right, let's talk about the civil rights.
So think about it. When you have a systematic our government, how our country is, when that is constantly being practiced, where you don't have these kids don't have this. Their parents don't have the opportunity. So, of course, that mentality gets fed to their children. And it's a constant cycle that goes on. And you're going to the cycle will continue of having young black males getting shot, going to jail, drugs in the community. It's a system cycle because of just how America is set up. It's set up for the richer to be rich and the poor always get screwed. Unfortunately, a lot of the poor people just happen to be in the inner cities. Now there's also poor white people outside the suburbs too who are going to start.
There's actually
feel these
more
victims.
poor white people
Yeah.
than poor black people
So, well, it's
at
'cause-
any given time
well,
throughout history.
That's because there's more white people in this country than
Right.
there are us.
So let's just talk about it as a poor mentality is what I'm trying to shift the conversation is. Like, poor is poor.
Poor is poor.
Poor is, like, my
But-
dad was poor.
but when
my
you ha-
dad was poor.
Yeah, but question.
But he
I wanna
had
ask
a
one
rich
question.
mentality.
One question. When your dad walked down the street, you ever had the cops roll up on you and pull guns on him and tell him to get up against the wall?
Well, let me
Has-
ask
has-
you.
has-
Let
has
me
he?
ask you something.
Yes, please
okay?
do.
How many times has an Asian person go to fucking a grocery store and fucking pull the fucking gat and go to some fucking other place and want to fucking rob a whatever?
I've never seen it happen.
Okay then.
I've never seen it happen.
So I'm just saying some stereotypes are in place because if you look at the actual facts of how many people, there's more black on black crime than there is white cops killing black people. There's
and
more
that's the-
black
and that's-
people
that's-
killing black people
and
than
again-
white cops killing black
Again,
people.
that's where I see your conservative media coming off from reading that shit. They
no,
always,
these are facts.
That's what they always put in there. If you put
always?
if you put poor people in the same community together, all right, and there's no opportunity, there's no programs coming there to help for education, to help renovate the area, and they're poor, and you flood. There's nothing but guns, and that's how they know how to survive to get their check. That you're going to be a victim of your own neighborhood.
Do you know what a victim is?
I almost became a victim of my own neighborhood. I have friends that are dead that have become a victim of my neighborhood.
Because you know what a victim is? Victim by definition means the inability to for me. Sorry, let me just say it again. The victimhood for me means the inability to forgive trespasses. So the victim becomes the perpetrator from resentment. From resentment, okay? A victim is someone who stays in unforgiveness and resentment from the things that show up in their reality, and then they think that to survive, they must become the top perpetrator to survive. That to me is the victimhood trajectory, is the victim becoming the monster that will later become the perpetrator, which is why domestic violence is a fucking generational cycle.
Yeah, for a lot of like the, that I hear a lot of artists complaining about, oh, it's just not fair, there's no money in music, and I shouldn't have to have a job and all that stuff. It's like, yeah, but you gotta look at. I was talking to a guy that I work with, actually, my boss. He was in a band in the 80s. And
Yeah?
he was like, man, they took care of everything back then.
Did they?
They paid our rent.
Wow.
We didn't have to book our shows. Like, we had a manager and...
Well, blame it on the consumers. We're the ones that chose to get music on the super cheap monthly. We stopped paying for albums, and because Napster and that whole
the internet
fiasco
changed everything.
happened.
And
Yeah.
as much as I bitch about Spotify, I do think it's a good service and it's providing music for people, and they're all in here.
Yeah.
And this is meant to
Quite
sit
an
down
album.
and put on a really good system and have a listening party with your friends. Like,
Yeah, speaking of which, do you want to... I'm hosting the show on the 28th of February, and it's in El Segundo. It's a really nice venue. The showcase is open mic, so I have maybe 3 people lined up to do an open mic. We're going to have the book ready, hopefully. Lorna, I don't know if you know her. She's an artist.
I know Lorna real well.
Awesome. She's going to be drawing you, actually, for the interview that we did of you a while back.
Oh, wow.
We're actually producing the Love Story Volume 2 now. So hopefully by then it'll be published.
I have yerba mate, or I have like these yogi teas.
Ooh, yogi teas are good. Yummy. Ooh, rose tea. What is this?
Put some rose petals in there.
Right? Oh, pomegranate white tea. Yes, this is the one. Ding, ding, ding. Thank you.
This is my routine.
Yeah.
I clean the kitchen. I talk to my plants.
Beautiful. Your plants really appreciate that. Oh, you have the Bose. I love that Bose sound. I lost it though. I used to have one. Such a good speaker. Reliable. Mini.
Yeah, that Jordan Peterson thing that you posted was interesting.
Oh, the one about the negative femininity?
Yeah.
I mean, it goes both ways. Everything's dualistic, male and female.
Yeah.
It's more for my girlfriends, you know? Yeah.
I remember because I watched that, you know, a while ago.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, too. And I remember thinking, like, God, there's no compassion in either one of these people.
Yeah.
Like down on the ground, put your rear end up, and get ready to have at it. Right? And you whack the dog, and he'll kind of bite you, and it wags its tail, and you know you know how that goes. So because you're smart, just like the dog, and the dog understands fair play, right? Which is something to really think about, right? Because that's why you can get along with a dog, because it's enough like you that you can both understand fair play. And so that just makes mockery of the idea that the notion of something like fair play is some sort of sociocultural artifact. It's like, no, it's not. That's wrong. Okay, and so we should stop thinking that, because it's simply not true. We've advanced enough in the scientific analysis of emergent ethics to understand that those claims are incorrect.
Like, they're not concerned at all with, like, understanding one another. Like, the only thing they're concerned with is, like, this, like, I'm gonna outdo you, and I'm gonna make you look foolish. You know, it's like...
That's true.
Like, what are we even doing? I don't know.
Well, the interesting fact is that I'm all about feminism, right? I'm all about women's rights and stuff. So I'm thinking, if we're really going to embrace feminism, the women, we got to embrace the responsibility that comes with feminism. So, for example, I'm all for equal pay. So if we were to go on a date, then that means we split the bill 50-50. You know, like let's just call it what it is. You know.
Yeah.
And girls can also be the perpetrators in a sexual harassment lawsuit. You know what I mean? Like, we can also be the ones that violate or make a man feel uncomfortable.
Is there a different set of rules for an indefinite sequence of games, or is it the same rule that applies if you only play one game? Well, I can tell you one thing, is that if you play an indefinite sequence of games like you would play a single game, then you're a psychopath, because that's what psychopaths do. If you play an indefinite sequence of games according to the rules of the indefinite sequence of games, then you're a good person. It's like the definition of good person. And so I formalized that. I said, it's what you want to do is win the set of all possible games. And you don't want to do that at the expense of winning a single game.
And so what the internet has done is it's given us all this, you know, easy access to things, but it hasn't made us work for anything. And part of the what we get out of life is and art is what we put into something.
I agree.
And so that's something I think.
That's why dating is so kind of out of whack now, because everyone's just kind of like, you don't have to work for anything, and here it is. You know.
Oh, how can I really enjoy this one person that I really like, that I'm into, you know, like when there's thousands of others that I'm just swiping left on, and thinking of the possibilities, you know, of like, oh, well, there might be someone better out there, but I think more than that, what it does is, on the other end, is it makes you kind of not trust the other person, because it's like, do you really like me, or, you know, like, what does this mean? You know, when you have so many other options out there, why would you pick me? little old me. You know? So like we live in a culture of insecurity in a lot of ways, and so the natural reaction to that is to like, oh, I'm gonna protect myself, and
I'm gonna do exactly what I feared you would do. That's projection. Yeah.
And stuff.
So
and
yeah.
I think we are getting more and more in a society where we're like, you know, where we're erring on politeness. And
Oh my God, it's
in order
horrible.
To, like,
Not hurt feelings.
Not hurt feelings in order to like stay safe, and so.
Oh God.
Like,
that's producing a weak culture, and when I say weak, I mean like people who can't take pain, who can't embrace their own pain, who, and pain for me at this point, doing the project that I do, I realize it's actually a catalyzer for transformation. And if we avoid it, you know, or we like switch to the next person because this person is just too extra for me or whatever, then, you know, you're never gonna discover what it is to love, you know, because
yeah, maybe we don't need that anymore.
Oh my God, that's everything.
Maybe we're so plugged in and turned on, and that all those old needs to like take care of other people or something are going away because we don't need to do it. You know? I mean, that's pretty scary.
That's really
like,
scary.
It's sad in a lot of ways, but
we do need it.
I wonder. Sometimes I see people being so polite to each other that it's not real.
Totally, it's not real.
And
oh my
like,
God.
What are we all doing here?
We're acting like robots.
We're acting like everything's so wonderful, and why do we need to do that? You know. Like,
and whoever says something negative, or something that's like true but it's ugly to hear, that person's crazy. And that to me is crazy.
I feel that way a lot of times as an artist too, because you know I have really strong opinions on what I think is good and what's not good.
Yeah.
And why.
Yeah.
But I find myself holding my tongue these days. Like I won't talk shit on someone and their music or their art or, you know, even though I would like to critique it and have an opinion on it, I will refrain from doing it because of how it'll make me look, because the judgment then is like, oh, well, you're just, you know, judgmental and or you're just egotistical or something.
Those sorts of things, it's like those are powerful, powerful forces. The circuitry that governs rage, the circuitry that governs panic, play, all of these things. It's like when the chips are down and they're activated, you are doing what they say. Now, it's not that dismal, but it's something to seriously take stock of. So Freud sort of outlined the internal landscape of instincts, and he thought of the instincts as the voice of the fundamental motivational systems, sex and aggression most particularly for Freud. And Jung took it one step farther, and this is one of the things that made him so sophisticated. He said, look, there's not just instincts, there's not just these base level instincts. So the Freudian idea was, you're a collection of base level instincts, and that has to be regulated by society. So society, in some sense, is a necessary tyrant. Because left to your own devices, you'd be, what would you call it? You'd be sex-addicted tyrannical chimpanzee. That would be your destiny. Right? And you'd be gluttonous too, that'd be the other thing. So you'd be eating and screwing and fighting all the time. That's all you do. And the only reason you don't do that is because other people won't let you. That's the Freudian view in some sense. And so you have a superego that inhibits the id forces that are driving you. And so for Freud, you're kind of caught between two titans. There's the underlying motivational systems, sex and aggression most particularly, driving you forward, and then there's the terrible weight of the judgmental superego crushing you down, and you're sort of in the middle of those two, trying not to be torn apart by the forces.
Yeah.
But like, it was a change in mentality of being like, well, I gotta make money somewhere, and I'm just going to, and now I'm gonna be really happy if I, you know, get a commercial deal for Target or something like that.
Things are changing.
But that's not the role of art.
No, it's not.
It's
Art is about
things.
yeah.
It's
Art
not.
is about telling the truth.
if you want to be an artist that works for Target, that sells clothing lines, or you know, well then you're just an ad man.
Yeah, you're an ad man. Yeah, madman, ad man.
And that's different than being like, okay, well, I'm gonna take on this artistic project to dive deeper into. I'm going to sell. Yeah, I don't know what I'm trying to say. What do we like? The Grammys are an interesting.
Oh God, let me get started on that one.
Are really interesting to me because Bruno Mars walks away with like all the Grammys, right? For his strawberry champagne, all nice. That's what I like, and like it's all this opulence and.
No, it's bullshit.
Meanwhile, we
it's
got
not the truth.
Donald Trump in office. Our economy's like collapsing. Like there's roles, like there's real shit happening in the world, and they're just like it's like they're discoing through the.
They're disconnected.
They're discoing through all the the turmoil.
It's decadence. By definition, is decadence. Decadence is when shit's going down. It's turning a blind eye to suffering and pain, not addressing it. Everything's all good. And it's also separating yourself from people who are suffering by saying, my life is great. You know, it's hubris.
It's hubris. It's a joke.
It's hubris. Exactly. When you create a utopia, and it's only a concentrated group of people that's creating the utopia, and if something doesn't work out, the natural tendency for that brain machine is to destroy anybody that opposes or criticizes. And so you breed a group of sycophants, which is how I see the movie industry or entertainment industry in Hollywood. It's just run by a bunch of sycophants that are like pleasing to the powers that be, you know? Which is where your music plays a critical role in that. Just getting people grounded in that energy.
That's what I'm more interested in.
Do that.
I think in the future is like making music that's not about me at all.
Yeah.
It's about helping people sleep and helping people relax and go inside themselves. And I mean, there's something to be said for performing and singing and getting up on a stage and being like, you know, look at me, and here this is, and I'm gonna perform for you.
Yeah.
But I think what makes me most happy is just creating music that I know is like serving a purpose that's like more futuristic or something.
And I'm talking about people who like have bad working conditions, who don't, you know, who's underpaying other people for the same kind of work, you know, because they're undocumented, for example. And so they take advantage of that by going cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. It's like, and they're living in these really nice houses, you know, because they want 3 or 2. You know, they want 1 car for each of their daughters or sons, you know. It's like...
I work with catering in Beverly Hills.
Uh-huh.
It's just disgusting. Disgusts me to see, like, you know, these old women draped in gold walking in like walking skeletons. You know?
Yeah.
Just draped in gold, and like they come up and they like spilling food all over their mouths and stuff. And it's like
they're acting like they're better than, and
their whole culture is like about royalty and
yep. You know, if I'm going to do another series, it's called Breaking Bread, and it's about a bunch of people from different backgrounds coming together, and the rule is say whatever is on your mind, unfiltered, and we just all cook together, we come together, and we film the whole thing, and we're talking.
and I would actually produce it into a journal again.